specifically. If you don't want to play against something and you're in this division, ban it. If you think something's overpowered in this division, ban it. What you want to kind of do is just focus on yourself, focus on your team individually, and find what you're comfortable with and what you're good at, and just sort of focus on fine-tuning that and using that to your best of your ability to improve specifically in those things. So a lot of this is going to be kind of just touching a little bit based on a lot of the teams and kind of what they do, but it's not going to be specifically on how to beat any of the other individual teams in this division. Now, this division does have 3 teams up top, DNA, Siege, and Claptrap, with X-Pirates, ROTA, and Tilty McTiltface coming up in the bottom half there. All looking for wins to try and make it into the playoffs, whereas the other the DNA, Siege, and Claptrap probably have secured their playoff spots. Once again, the OPGG and Loking and all those fancy websites were having a ton of issues today, so some of these matches and teams only have like 1 or 2 matches. Some of them have 3 or 4, so it kind of depends on what statistics will be brought up, but it's more of just a template for everyone to use, specifically like viewers, casters, people streaming, even if you're trying to learn and figure out this part of the aspect of, how to compare and analyze teams on their statistics as a team versus individuals. This is something you can kind of start with. So let's just sort of break it down and get into the first team here. So here we got Dino-Gnosis Acolytes. This is one of the teams where only got a match. Sadly, it was an 0-2 on their side, considering that they're sitting at the top of the table before that match took place, I believe. As kind of we look at what they kind of ran in the one comp, they kind of wanted to go with the hard CC of the bot lane. You have the Ashe there, the Rakan, Maokai. That's some hard CCs with a little bit of pick potential with the Rise and Brand. If you try and layer some of that CC, make it pretty easy for yourselves. But the key here is they ran 2 junglers that are high burst damage junglers with no hard CC, whereas you do have a little bit of CC coming out of the top lane, some Juggernauts up there. So they're looking at doing some type of pick, but it's not a hard pick. It's kind of like a soft pick. You're trying to isolate 1 or 2 people from the rest of your team or the rest of the enemy team and isolate them down, burst them out with the Graves Evelynn there, and trying to focus that way. The Evelynn also adds additional unknown quantity to jungling because of her invisibility and gank paths that she can produce going into the other team. So once again, there are no bans targeted at any of these players or any of these teams specifically. Ban if you run up against this team, ban what you feel is necessary. It's kind of depend on who they play. This division also is going to have some of those tweeners, people between 2 different leagues that are playing on multiple teams. So we'll see a lot of that. So if you see one of those teams or players on the other teams, you see that they had certain bans against them in the upper division, go ahead and you can apply that down here. Each team's going to have kind of one strength, and then I'll touch at the very end here the target to beat, because it's going to be more about the teams as an overall whole to work to improve all of them, to increase their play, their win rate, their ability in the League of Legends, not only just in this division trying to win it out. So let's touch on the place currently ranked second right now is Siege, and they're running a little bit different comp. So this team is, in their wins that they play very fast. About 30 minutes, just under 32 minutes there. They take some towers. Notice one of the things we'll touch on is the consistency. So you can see target to beat. It's going to be on every single team here, and they've already started to follow this. They have a lot, multiple games on individual characters. Buckeye for Life here has put in his last 4 matches or 4 games played in matches have been on Sejuani, and that has allowed some hard CC but consistency coming out of the jungle that can also be then followed up by the tanks coming out of Banshees and comboing it with the Taric or the Healy Shieldy supports of Namikama Shushi. But we also then have your wild cards of the AD carries, your carry and your mid laner there on some mobility champions, hard to lock down compared to having a Sejuani, which makes it team fight easier to lock down. And their one loss, I believe it was one loss, they did extend the game very long to the almost 53-minute mark. So those up-tempo fighting styles that they showed in those other matches and keeping the game going more rapidly seems to be playing their style. And the longer the game kind of got kited out there seemed to be a detriment to them, but that's not necessarily going to be true in every regards. Claptrap is the third team here, and this team has went 4-0 in the game matches I was able to find. And with them, we got a very kind of specific comp. They have a lot of CC and tankiness coming from a lot of different places, especially down in the support. You have the Tarek once again showing his face in this division, and then a little bit of, it's not necessarily cheese, but a little bit of flavor to the division with the Scion bot lane here. The Ashe once again, but this team runs like the Galio, Malzahar, Luxmid, so they're looking at more team fighting, CC comps. They're not bringing it out of the jungle like with the Master Yi or Yasuo picks there. Then they're replacing that with like the Poppy and Gnar up top. And if they are bringing it out of the jungle, they have a little bit more damage, like the Lissandra or the Echo in that regards. And then we have the next three teams here. As we'll move, we'll cover Tilty, McTiltface here. They're the next ones. Their records on the Vantage website says that they've only played 2 matches and they lost both of them. But the most recent games I've found did have some wins. So this team is a team that's play basically as the 4 has been pretty good. And like the one of the divisions, when you have a sub or a consistent role that gets subbed out a lot, your ability to make them adapt into your teamwork or your team plan is going to be really important going forward and how you go about addressing that. So getting them to fit your team comp or slightly molding your team comp around what they do well is something that I think this team has slowly started to figure out. We also see some of the new stuff here coming out. The Kane, they're putting a couple of games in on the Kane, and with that regards, there was one team comp I saw from this team. They ran a really heavy AP. I think they ran like Ari Ziggs between Bonesaw and Bowtie's Tisdale there, which is a lot of AP, but they then countered that off with some heavy AD coming out of the top half, which was one of those Kane games, a Kane and I think it was the Riven game there. So balancing your team comp and being able to play those teams well. And one of the things, notice this is probably a lot of skirmishing going on with these types of teams. You do have the Rakan and Blitzcrank there, and Braum is another champion that we'll see picked up here with some of the other teams. So definitely see that skirmishing in the mid game. So surprisingly, their skirmishing turned into full-out 5-on-5 team fights because their matches that they won did seem to go pretty long. This is another one of the teams where we only had one match with this team, and there's a bunch of subs and role swaps, so I'm not exactly sure where this team is sitting at, but here are the stats for them. Riders of the Apocalypse. Hopefully we'll be getting a little bit more information if they do make it into the playoffs going forward. And last we have Extreme Pirates here, and I say this team for last specifically because they do have a lot of people that we've seen we've seen Power Steering as one of those tweeners, and he's actually pulled out the new Urgot decently, but this team has actually not won a single game in the ones that I could find. I believe they played 6 games, so but it's something that they're working through, and you can see kind of like what they're touching base on. This is another team where one specific role, in this case mid lane, has had multiple subs. They're trying to rotate them in and out and find success within it, and sometimes it's really hard to do that, especially when the other team is organized and competing against you to the best of their abilities. And how we go about that is, in top lane it's a little bit different because you can kind of either isolate them or have them like come into the team fight very well, but mid lane is very dictatable, and having someone like an easy wave clear champion like the Xerath or the Orianna is really nice, but requiring someone to be put onto the Aurelion Soul, unless that's their most comfortable pick, and having them roam and be the aggressor for the side lanes is a different strategy that uniquely didn't turn out in that particular game to be considered a success because it didn't win. But I really would have liked to see how they played that and how it ended up going against their opponents. I think that if the person subbing did have a pretty stable consistency on Aurelion Sol, it could be a very different route about going in for a sub player to be used. You use them as your catalyst, your ignition to start whatever your team wants to do. And then on this roster, I have the list of the official subs on the roster on the website. They have basically a whole other team of 5 players here that are listed as on the teams that can sub in. Usually this is due to probably schedule conflicts and high workloads. I see a couple of the Vantage guys on here. So when we're looking at creating a team, and this is harder to do when you have basically a 10-man roster that this team does, is you want consistency. And this goes across every team in every division. And while I spoke about specifically teams in the other divisions about banning certain champions or picking certain style of team comps or how to go about winning a game or a match, we're looking into the details. The most important thing, though, is being consistent. If you consistently are hitting certain points, gold or CS, or being at, taking down towers as a team, hitting certain ward points, if you're doing that consistency, that's something where you can put a baseline down and you can improve upon, or if you see that your baseline is at a good spot relatively compared to others, and you drastically show that you're lacking like vision or wards compared to the other teams, which you can use this in your losses. How many wards are you placing versus the other teams in the division? You can talk about this as a team, and this goes into the next part, the work on the communication. So if you're all being consistent, and the more consistency you have as a unit, the easier it is to communicate, because it's easier for you to tell your teammates what you need, what you want out of your situation, and what you're looking forward to or doing on their situations. Like, what do you want from your support if you're the AD carry? If you've put in 3 games on Sivir and your support's put in 2 games on Braum, together, your 4th and 3rd game together as the Sivir-Braum combination should have more consistency and be easier to communicate on how the ebb and flow of that lane is going, which then allows an easier transition to communicating with your jungler. It's the reason why people say one-trick champions. I'm not asking you to one-trick any champions in a league format, because that just puts you in ban prison if your one champion gets banned. So you would have to have a little bit more flexibility on your total number of champions being played, but I think it's possible to do with all these people. And we're going to touch base on the last one here. 1 goal, 1 plan, 1 execution, 1 victory. So I used something very similar like this when I coached high school football, and you kind of put together, right? So you can break this, you can make this huge, right? Like 1 goal, I want to win my division. 1 plan, we are going to play like 1-3-1 comps, or we're going to play early aggressive champions, or we're going to play whatever, 3 tanks, 2 carries. However you and your team discuss how you want your plan on reaching your goal of winning the division, talk about it. Then you execute. Now this kind of goes extremely important part of the plan is the execution of it. How are you going to execute it? So your plan of doing early game team comps. You're gonna pick team comps that can have easy level 1 and 2s to push the waves. Maybe possibly have an easy champion to do in a jungle invade. Kill potential, how much hard CC, where your jungle pathing is. And then you actually have to go out and execute it. So in football, the goal is to win the game. The plan is we're going to run the football behind our big offensive line that we have, and our execution is, working on making sure that snap is correct, The handoff from the quarterback to the running back is in good conform. But the execution is the important part of here is the offensive line has to actually block. If they're the bigger, stronger offensive line, they have to actually execute with the right footwork and momentum to push the defensive back, which allows the running back the ability to run. Now the running back's going to run it all the way in for a touchdown or maybe just get the first down, and that play, that's a victory. Victory does not mean you've won the game. Victory means you've succeeded in the execution. You've exceeded in your plan, and you've exceeded in your goal. Your goals can be big, win the game. Your goals can be just get the first down. The plan is the run behind the line. The execution is good snap, good handoff, good blocking by the offensive line, and a good cut by the running back. He got the 5 yards he needed to get to the first down marker. He got the first down. That's one victory. This is the reason why I like football, because you get to stop, set, and go and play again. So you can reset this. In league, you get this exact same chance. Goal: we are going to do dragon. Plan: we're going to place pink ward in the bush, river bush by dragon. We're going to place 2 wards, one by blue buff, one on the other side of the banana bush to see if anyone's coming, because we're on blue side. Execution: the jungler got there first to set the pink ward, which allowed the support, the duo pair, to walk up and place the wards that allowed the rest of the team to follow in. The execution was good. The enemy team didn't show up. We secured the dragon. We got the small victory. You back, or you go back to lane, and you proceed with the next step. Sometimes it's taking those little steps that you need to do, and sometimes you have to talk your way through every single step to get every single victory. Planning 30 seconds in advance, 1 minute in advance, is something that's very hard to do, especially when you're trying to communicate and you're not on champions that you're consistent with, which is why be consistent is number 1. Work on the communication is number 2, and then one goal, one plan, one execution, one victory is the third point here for these teams to focus on. So I'm going to put the link to the Google Doc in